Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not just scratching the surface. We are drilling down to the absolute bedrock of modern thought.
We really are.
We're talking about a time in history, specifically the 17th century, where it feels like the entire operating system of humanity got a complete upgrade.
It really was a total reboot. You have to imagine the intellectual landscape before this. I mean, for over 1,000 years, if you wanted to know the truth about the universe, you didn't really look at the world.
Right.
You looked at a book, you looked at Aristotle, or you looked at the Bible. Authority was the currency of truth.
Yeah, the final answer was just because he said so.
Yeah.
And then around 1600, the vibe just completely shifts. We move from this idea of authority to reason. And today we are focusing on three titans who took that word reason and pushed it, really pushed it, further than anyone thought possible. The rationalists.
The rationalists.
Yeah.
And we should probably define that term right out of the gate, because today we use rational just to mean sensible or logical.
Sure, be rational about this.
Exactly. But in philosophy, capital R rationalism is a very specific, very bold stance. It's the belief that the most important truths about God, the soul, the very nature of reality, can be discovered a priori.
A priori. Okay, let's break that down. That means from the earlier, right? Or something like before.
Exactly. It means knowledge that you can get before you even experience the world. Knowledge that comes from pure logical deduction, just sitting in your armchair, eyes closed.
So it's the opposite of empiricism.
The total opposite. Empiricism says you have to go out and touch and measure and experiment. The rationalists believed that the senses were, messy, unreliable.
A distraction almost.
A distraction, yeah. But the mind was a steel trap that could catch the universe itself.
It's the difference between, say, measuring a triangle you drew on a piece of paper, which might be a little wonky, the lines aren't perfect, and understanding the concept of a triangle, which is mathematically perfect and always true.
Precisely. And we are going to look at the three giants who tried to build the entire universe out of these perfect concepts. First, René Descartes, the Frenchman who tried to doubt his way to certainty.
Then Benedict Spinoza.
The lens grinder who saw God everywhere, in everything.
And finally, Gottfried Leibniz.
The diplomat who saw the universe not as one thing, but as infinite, isolated little bubbles of reality.
And they're so different. They end up in wildly different places philosophically, but you're saying they are all running on the same fuel.
The same core principle. They all share this deep commitment to the principle of sufficient reason.
The principle of sufficient reason. Okay, that sounds a little dry.
It sounds dry, but it's actually an intuitive demand we all have. It simply states, for every fact, there must be a reason why it is so and not otherwise.
So nothing just is.
Nothing just is. Nothing happens without a cause. There are no brute facts. No just because.
No, just because.
Right. If a planet moves, there's a reason. If you exist, there's a reason. If God exists, there has to be a reason. The rationalists took this principle and applied it with just ruthless consistency. They refused to stop asking why until they hit the absolute bottom.
So our mission today is to follow that chain of whys. We're going to trace how this obsession with reason led Descartes from total skepticism to Spinoza's idea of a radical unity, and then all the way to Leibniz's universe of mirrors.
A heck of a journey.
It is. And we have to start with the man who is often blamed or, credited for starting modern philosophy in the first place, René Descartes.
The father of modern philosophy. And his story really begins in a situation that I think a lot of us can relate to, just feeling overwhelmed by information but not being sure what's actually true.
It's 1619. He's a young man, he's a soldier, he's traveling through Germany, and he gets stuck in a winter storm.
That's right. He finds himself in this small room, heated by a stove of pole, as he calls it. He's completely isolated. He has no books, no conversation, just his own thoughts.
The ultimate lockdown.
Basically, yeah. And he starts to reflect on everything he learned in school, all the philosophy, the science. And he realizes that most of it was based on probability or tradition or sensory inputs that could easily be wrong. He feels like he's standing on quicksand.
So he decides to just tear the whole house down.
Completely. He resolves to rebuild all of human knowledge from the ground up, accepting nothing is true unless it is absolutely indubitable.
Indubitable, meaning it is impossible to doubt.
Impossible. Not just unlikely, but logically impossible to doubt.
This is the famous method of doubt. I've always loved the analogy he uses here, the barrel of apples.
It's the perfect metaphor. Imagine your mind is a barrel full of apples. These apples are all your beliefs.
Everything you think you know.
Right. And some of them are probably rotten false beliefs. But They're all mixed in with the good ones. And if you leave the rotten ones in there, the rot spreads. It corrupts the other beliefs.
So you can't just pick through them one by one inside the barrel because you might miss one.
You can't. The only safe way is to dump the entire barrel out. Empty it completely.
Get rid of everything.
Everything. Then inspect every single apple, one by one, and only put back the ones that are absolutely pristine, the ones you are 100% sure about.
So let's walk through this process because he does it in stages. He doesn't just say, I doubt everything and call it a day. He systematically attacks his own confidence.
He does. Stage 1, the senses.
The most obvious place to start.
Correct. He looks at his sensory experience. Can he trust his eyes, his ears? Well, no. We all know the senses deceive us. A square tower looks round from a distance.
A straight stick looks bent when you put it in a glass of water.
Exactly. So the senses are unreliable for things that are small or far away.
Sure, but those are kind of edge cases, aren't they? I mean, right now I'm sitting here, I'm holding a microphone, I see you. It feels like a stretch to say my senses are deceiving me about this.
And Descartes agrees with you at first. He says it seems mad to doubt that. But then he escalates to stage 2, the dreaming argument.
Ah, the Matrix argument before the Matrix.
Exactly. He asks himself, how many times have I had a dream that was so vivid, so real, that I was convinced I was awake?
All the time.
In dreams, we see things, we feel heat, we hear voices. The sensations are identical to waking life, and yet none of it is real.
And his point is that there is no distinct mark or sign, no little indicator in the corner of your vision to tell you for sure, 100%, that you aren't dreaming right now.
Precisely. You might feel certain you're awake, but you felt that same certainty in dreams too. So if you can't prove you aren't dreaming, you can't trust any experience of the physical world. The room, your body, this microphone, it could all be a mental projection.
That's genuinely terrifying. Okay, so the physical world is gone, but he realizes something survives the dream argument, doesn't he?
Yes, math.
Math.
Even if you're dreaming, 2 + 3 = 5. Even in a dream, a square has 4 sides. The fundamental abstract structure of reality seems to hold up, even if the content of the dream is fake.
So math is the one apple he can put back in the barrel.
Not yet. He's not done. He has one more stage. This is where he brings out the heavy artillery. Stage 3, the evil genius.
This is where he goes full paranoia.
Full-blown radical skepticism.
Yeah.
He hypothesizes, what if there isn't a good God? What if instead there is a being of immense power, a malicious demon, who is using all his energy for the sole purpose of deceiving me?
So this demon isn't just tricking my senses.
No, this is much deeper. What if this demon is manipulating my mind so that every time I add 2 and 3, I think the answer is 5, but it's actually something else?
Wow. So he's hacking the software of your logic?
Exactly. This demon could make you believe that a square has 4 sides when it really has 6. If this demon could exist even as a possibility, then even math isn't safe. Even logic isn't safe.
So the physical world is a trap, and your own mind is being gaslit on a cosmic scale.
Yes. And with that, the barrel is empty. There's nothing left. No world, no body, no past, no map. Just a single floating point of doubt.
Total darkness.
Total darkness. But in that darkness, Descartes hits something hard. Something that even the demon cannot dissolve. I think, therefore I am.
Now, play the skeptic for me here. Why is this immune to the demon? If the demon can trick me about math, something so basic, why can't he trick me into thinking I exist when I don't?
Because the deception itself requires a target. In order to be deceived, there must be a me that is being deceived. In order to doubt, there must be a doubter.
Ah, I see.
Even if I doubt that I exist, the very act of doubting is a form of thinking. And thinking requires a thinker. The demon can trick me about what I am, but he can't trick me about that I am.
So it's a self-verifying loop. I am doubting proves I am.
Exactly. You can't be nothing in doubt at the same time. So he has it. His one pristine apple, his Archimedean point. I exist. He knows he is a thinking thing, a res cogitans.
Okay, so he exists. That's a huge step, but that's all he knows. He's still locked in his own mind, right? The rest of the world is still potentially a demon hologram. This is solipsism.
Yes. He has painted himself into the corner of solipsism. He is totally alone in the universe of his own mind. He needs a bridge to get back to reality.
And that bridge is God.
It has to be. He can't use his senses to prove the world exists, so he has to look inside his own mind for a way out. And inside his mind, among his other thoughts, he finds the idea of God.
Now, this is where a lot of modern listeners might get a little tripped up. He tries to prove God exists just by thinking about it, No holy books, no miracles, just pure logic.
He does. And he uses two main arguments that are, well, they're pretty ingenious. The first is often called the trademark argument or the causal argument,
Okay.
and it relies heavily on that principle of sufficient reason we talked about earlier.
Walk us through it.
Descartes looks at the ideas in his mind. He has an idea of a tree, an idea of an animal, maybe an idea of an angel. He figures he could have invented those himself by combining other ideas.
Sure, I can imagine a unicorn by sticking a horn on a horse.
Right. But then he finds one very special idea, the idea of an infinite, perfect, all-knowing being,
Yeah.
God.
Okay, he has the idea.
Now, he applies a principle he calls the principle of adequate reality. It basically says that a cause must have at least as much reality as its effect.
Kind of like you can't get more out than you put in.
Exactly. Think of it like heat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't heat water to 100 degrees unless the fire you're using is at least 100 degrees.
Right.
So Descartes says, I am finite. I am imperfect. I know I'm imperfect because I doubt things. How could a finite, imperfect being like me create the idea of an infinite, perfect being?
I see. He's saying the idea is too big, too real for him to have just made it up.
Exactly. The idea of infinity couldn't have come from him, a finite being. It must have been placed in his mind by something that is actually infinite and perfect.
Right.
A trademark stamped on a product by its maker.
So the idea of God in our minds is God's signature.
That's the argument. Therefore, God must exist.
It's a clever move. He's using his own inadequacy as a ladder to prove God's existence.
It is. And then he has another more famous argument, the ontological argument.
This one is more about definitions, right?
Yes, it's a classic. He argues that existence is part of the very definition of a perfect being. Just like having three angles is part of the definition of a triangle. You can't have a triangle without three angles.
Okay.
He says, in the same way, you can't have a perfect being that lacks existence, because a being that exists is more perfect than one that doesn't. Existence is a perfection.
So a non-existing God is a contradiction in terms, like a four-sided triangle.
To Descartes, yes. It's inconceivable. Therefore, God must exist.
And once he has God, the whole world comes flooding back.
The whole world.
Yeah.
Because if God exists and God is perfect, then God cannot be a deceiver. Deceit comes from weakness or malice, which are imperfections. A perfect being wouldn't create us with faulty minds and then gaslight us on a cosmic scale.
So the evil demon is gone. God is our guarantor.
God is the guarantee. God ensures that our cognitive faculties, when we use them correctly, when we perceive things clearly and distinctly, as Descartes says, are reliable.
The world is back. But it's not the same world, is it? The world that Descartes rebuilds isn't the magical, spirited world of the Middle Ages?
No, not at all. He stripped all that away. The world he gets back is a machine. And this brings us to his metaphysics, dualism. He splits the universe to two totally different kinds of substances.
Mind and matter.
Yes. On one side, you have mind, res cogitans, the thinking thing. Its essence is consciousness. It's non-spatial, it's indivisible, and it's free.
And on the other side,
You have matter, res extensa, the extended thing.
when you say extension, you mean it literally just takes up space. That's its entire job.
That's its entire essence.
Yeah.
For Descartes, matter is basically geometry made real. It has length, width, and depth. That's it. It doesn't have color or heat or spirit or desire. It's just dead stuff getting pushed around by laws of motion.
So the human body is just a meat machine.
A very complex hydraulic machine, in his view. He thought nerves were tubes with animal spirits, which he imagined as very fine fluids or gases blowing through them to inflate muscles and cause movement.
And what about actual animals? A dog, a cat?
Just automata. Machines. They don't have minds, no souls. They just react to stimuli like a clockwork toy. If you kick a dog and it yelps, that's just the sound of the machinery malfunctioning.
That's a pretty dark thought. But the real problem for his system, and the one that plagued him and everyone after him, is the interaction.
The mind-body problem.
Yeah. If I am a ghost, mind, and I am driving a machine, body, how do I touch the steering wheel?
It's the multi-trillion-dollar question. If the mind has no mass, no shape, and no location in space, how does it cause a neuron, a physical thing, to fire? It's like trying to tackle a football player with a thought. You should pass right through.
Descartes knew this was a huge problem, right? People called him out on it.
Oh, he knew. He struggled with it. He proposed the pineal gland, a tiny single structure in the center of the brain, as the seat of the soul.
His logic being that since the soul is unified and the pineal gland is the only part of the brain that isn't doubled up like the two hemispheres.
That must be the place where the interaction happens. But, as his critics pointed out, that doesn't solve the physics problem. Identifying where it supposedly happens doesn't explain how it happens.
Right. How does a non-physical thing push a physical thing?
Exactly. It was a weak patch on a strong hull. And the philosophers who came after him looked at that patch and said, this doesn't hold water. And that leads us directly to our second thinker, Spinoza.
Baruch, or Benedict Spinoza. If Descartes is the guy trying to rebuild the house from a new foundation, Spinoza's the guy who looks at the blueprints and says the foundation itself is cracked.
Spinoza is a fascinating figure. He was a Portuguese Jew living in Amsterdam in the mid-1600s. And he was brilliant, but his ideas were considered so dangerous, so radioactive, that he was excommunicated from the Jewish community at age 23.
And we're not talking a polite please leave. This was a serious curse.
A harem. It was severe. Cursed be he by day, and cursed be he by night. I mean, it was total. He was completely cut off. He changed his first name to the Latin Benedict and spent the rest of his short life grinding lenses for telescopes and microscopes.
A very quiet, solitary life.
A quiet life, and he ended up dying young from inhaling glass dust. But in that quiet life, he wrote his masterpiece, The Ethics, a book that challenges everything Descartes said.
He looked at Descartes' dualism, this fundamental split between mind and body, and said, this is the problem.
Right. Descartes said there are two, maybe three, kinds of substance: God, mind, and matter. Spinoza took a hard look at the very definition of substance and said, if you follow logic, there can't be two.
How does he get there?
Well, let's start with the definition. A substance is defined as something that is in itself and is conceived through itself. In other words, it needs nothing else to exist or to be understood. It is completely independent.
Okay, self-sufficient.
Exactly. So Spinoza argues, if there were two substances, say mind and matter, they would have to limit each other. Mind would stop where matter began, and vice versa.
They'd form a border.
Right. But if something is limited by another thing, it's not truly independent, is it? It depends on the other thing for its boundary. Therefore, a true substance must be unlimited. It must be infinite.
And there can only be one infinity.
There can only be one. So there is only one substance in the entire universe.
And what does he call this one substance?
He uses a phrase that got him into a lot of trouble. Deus sive natura.
Which means?
God or nature.
Wait, God or nature, as in they're interchangeable, they're synonyms.
Yes. This is the core of his system. He is a monist. He believes God is not a grandfather figure sitting outside the universe creating it like a craftsman. God is the universe. God is the eternal underlying reality of everything that exists.
This is pantheism, right? God is in everything.
It's a kind of pantheism, but a very rational, cold pantheism. It's not that the trees are spirits or have feelings. It's that the trees and the stars and you and me are all just temporary shapes. He calls them modes of the one single infinite substance. We're like waves in the ocean of God.
Okay, that sounds pretty mystical, but how does it solve the problem Descartes had? The problem of the ghost in the machine?
It solves it by saying they aren't two different things to begin with.
Explain that.
Spinoza proposes what we now call mind-body identity, or parallelism. He says that mind and matter, or as he calls them, thought and extension, are just two different attributes of the one substance, God.
Attributes.
Ways of perceiving the one reality. Think of a coin.
Okay, I have a
I
coin.
can look at the coin and see heads, or you can flip it over and see tails. But it is one and the same piece of metal. For Spinoza, a thought in your mind and a firing neuron in your brain are the exact same event, just perceived in two different ways. One is the event viewed under the attribute of thought. The other is the same event viewed under the attribute of extension.
So my mind isn't causing my body to move.
No. That would be like saying the head side of the coin caused the tail side to exist. They happen simultaneously because they are two aspects of the same thing. The sequence of thoughts in your mind perfectly parallels the sequence of physical motions in your body, not because they interact, but because they are the same reality viewed from different angles.
That is incredibly elegant. It totally bypasses the ghost steering the wheel problem.
It does. It's a logically seamless solution, but the cost is very, very high.
What's the cost?
Freedom.
Right. If I am just a mode of God, if I am just a wave in the ocean of substance, do I have any say in what I do?
Spinoza would say, absolutely not. He is a hard determinist. Everything in the universe follows from the nature of God with the same logical necessity that the properties of a triangle follow for its definition.
So just like a triangle must have 180 degrees, I must be sitting here recording this right now.
Yes, it could not have been otherwise. For Spinoza, free will is a complete delusion, an illusion born of ignorance.
Ignorance of what?
Ignorance of causes. He has this famous analogy of the flying stone. Imagine you throw a stone through the air.
Okay.
Now imagine that halfway through its flight, that stone suddenly wakes up and gains consciousness. It feels itself moving forward. It feels its own momentum.
And it thinks, wow, I'm flying. I'm choosing to go over to that tree.
Exactly. It thinks it is flying because it wants to. It is aware of its desire, its motion, but it's completely ignorant of your arm that threw it. It's ignorant of gravity, of air resistance, of all the external causes that are actually determining its path.
And we are that stone.
We are that stone. We are conscious of our desires, so we think we are free. But we are profoundly ignorant of the millions of biological and environmental causes that made us have those desires in the first place.
That is bleak. I mean, it feels really bleak. If we are just rocks falling through space, why on earth did he call his book The Ethics? Usually ethics is about making good choices. If I can't choose, how can I be ethical?
That is the brilliant twist in his system. For Spinoza, freedom isn't the ability to choose A or B. True freedom is understanding
Understanding what?
the system.
Understanding the system, understanding the necessity of all things. When you are the stone and you think you are flying by your own free will, you are delusional. You are a slave to your passions and your imagination. But if you can rise above that and understand gravity, understand the throw, understand the whole causal chain, you align your mind with reality.
So if someone insults me, the unfree reaction is to get angry and think, he is evil, he chose to hurt me.
Right. You're a slave to that passion of anger.
But the free Spinozan reaction is to understand his background, his brain chemistry, and the current situation determine that he would say that. Exactly. You see it as a natural event, like a storm or a falling rock. And you don't get angry at a storm. Spinoza calls the highest state the intellectual love of God. It's a state of profound peace that comes from seeing the logical necessity of all things, seeing the world sub specie aeternitatis, under the aspect of eternity.
So the goal isn't to change the world, because you can't. It's to understand it so deeply that it stops hurting you emotionally.
Precisely. It's a very stoic kind of freedom, freedom from passion through reason.
I can absolutely see why people in the 17th century found this unsettling. He took the personal, loving God of the Bible and turned him into the laws of physics.
He depersonalized the universe entirely. And that brings us perfectly to our third giant, Gottfried Leibniz. Because Leibniz looked at Spinoza's system and he was absolutely horrified.
He actually met Spinoza, didn't he?
He did. He visited him in 1676, not long before Spinoza died. It's one of the great what-ifs of intellectual history, these two geniuses sitting in a dusty room in The Hague. But Leibniz left feeling that Spinoza's philosophy was a trap, a beautiful, logical trap.
Why? What was his main objection to it?
Two big things, really. First, he wanted to save individuality. Spinoza melts us all down into one single substance God. Leibniz wanted to preserve the idea that you and me are real, distinct, individual things.
And the second thing?
He wanted to save purpose. Spinoza's world is just blind, mechanical, logical necessity. Leibniz was a devout Christian. He wanted a universe that had meaning, a moral dimension, a universe created by a good God for a reason.
Okay, so how does he solve the puzzle? Descartes had two substances, mind and body. Spinoza boiled it down to one, God or nature. What does Leibniz do?
He explodes the system. He says there aren't two substances or one substance. There are infinite substances,
Infinite.
an infinite number of them, and he calls them monads.
Okay, let's unpack the monad, because this is one of the trippiest concepts in all of philosophy. What is a monad?
Okay, think about matter. If you take a piece of cake, you can cut it in half. Then you can cut that half in half. You can keep going down and down to atoms, then subatomic particles.
The idea of divisibility.
Right. As long as something has physical size, as long as it's extended in space, it has parts. And if it has parts, it's not truly simple. It's a collection of other things.
Okay, that makes sense.
Leibniz argues that the fundamental building blocks of reality must be truly simple. They can't have any parts, which means they can't have size. They can't be material or physical at all.
So the ultimate building blocks of the universe aren't physical?
Correct. They are metaphysical points. They are non-spatial centers of force, energy, and perception. He basically says the fundamental stuff of the universe is something like soul.
So my coffee cup is made of souls.
In a way, yes. It's a colony of what he'd call bare monads. Monads with very, very confused and dim perceptions. They are like sleeping souls.
That is wild, but hang on, here's the problem again. Interaction. If the universe is just a cloud of infinite non-physical souls, do they talk to each other? Do they bump into each other?
And Leibniz gives a very, very strict answer. No. He says, monads have no windows.
No windows.
Nothing can go in or out of a monad. They are completely self-contained. They
Oh.
do not and cannot causally interact with each other in any way.
Wait, product. They have no windows and they don't interact? How am I seeing you right now? How does my mind, which is a dominant monad,
A rational monad, yes.
how does it know that your body, which is a collection of other monads, is sitting there talking? This seems impossible.
This is where Leibniz pulls out his most famous and perhaps most bizarre theory, pre-established harmony.
Oh boy. Okay, here we go.
Imagine two perfect clocks. They are built by the same master clockmaker, and they are set to the exact same time and wound up perfectly.
Okay, two perfect clocks.
Now, you put them on opposite walls of a room, you watch them. When clock A points to 12, clock B points to 12. When clock A chimes, clock B chimes at the exact same instant.
Right, they're in sync.
Now, imagine you don't know they are clocks. You might look at them and think, wow, clock A is causing clock B to move, or that they're communicating, but they aren't connected at all. They were just pre-programmed by the same clockmaker to be in perfect sync from the beginning.
And the clockmaker is God.
Yes. Leibniz says that at the moment of creation, God programmed every single monad in the universe with a specific internal script, a complete perception program for its entire existence.
So we aren't actually interacting.
Not at all. We are isolated soloists. But God, the divine conductor, has written the score so perfectly that it looks like we're a harmonious orchestra. When I decide to raise my arm, my mind monad doesn't cause my arm monads to move.
So what happens?
My mind monad was pre-programmed to have the perception I am deciding to raise my arm at this exact nanosecond. And at that same nanosecond, the monads that make up my arm were pre-programmed to follow their own internal script, which says, move up now.
That seems unbelievably complicated. Why would God go to all that trouble? Why not just let things bump into each other like Descartes thought?
Because Leibniz was also a brilliant logician, and he was obsessed with the logic of the subject and predicate. This is the other key to a system.
Give me the explain like I'm five version of that.
Okay. Take a simple true sentence. Caesar crossed the Rubicon.
Right. Historical fact.
We usually think that Caesar, the subject, existed, and then he performed an action, crossing the Rubicon, the predicate. The action was an add-on to who he was.
Sure. He could have chosen not to.
Leibniz says no. He argues that in every true proposition, the predicate is already contained within the concept of the subject. The complete concept of Caesar, the full definition of who that specific individual is, already contains everything that ever happened or will happen to him.
So crossing the Rubicon was baked into the definition of Caesar.
Exactly. Just like having a trunk is baked into the definition of elephant. If you could see the full God's eye view concept of Caesar, you would see his birth, his campaigns, crossing the Rubicon, and his death in 44 BC, all laid out as part of his identity.
So if he had decided not to cross the Rubicon.
He wouldn't be Caesar. He would be a different possible person.
But hold on, that brings us right back to Spinoza's determinism, doesn't it? If everything I'm ever going to do is already baked into my definition from the start of time, I have no free will, I'm just playing out a pre-written script.
Leibniz tries very, very hard to avoid this conclusion. He's what we'd call a compatibilist. He says your actions incline without necessitating. You are still free because you are acting according to your own nature. No one is forcing you externally. It's your will that's playing out.
It feels like a technicality, though. You freely chose this, but God chose to create the version of you that was always going to freely choose this.
It is a bit of a loop, yes. But it leads to his final big idea, which is maybe his most famous, the theodicy.
The problem of evil.
Right. If God is all-powerful and all good, and he gets to choose which script to run, why this one? Why a script with war and plague and podcast hosts getting confused by 17th century philosophy?
Yeah, why not a nicer one?
This is where he argues that this is, in fact, the best of all possible worlds.
Voltaire made so much fun of this in Candide. If this is the best, I'd hate to see the worst.
It sounds naive when you say it like that, but the logic behind it is actually quite beautiful. Leibniz says God, in his infinite mind, surveyed all the infinite possible universes.
Okay.
And he looked for the one that would maximize two competing principles: variety and order.
Variety and order.
Right. A universe with just one perfect, shiny sphere is very ordered and simple, but it's incredibly boring. Zero variety. A universe with total random chaos has maximum variety, but no order, no simple laws.
It wouldn't be a cosmos, it'd be chaos.
Precisely. So God, being a perfect mathematician, calculated the optimal balance. He chose to create the one universe that contains the most rich, diverse, complex phenomena that can be explained by the simplest, most elegant set of natural laws.
So the suffering, the
Yeah.
evil, it's like the shadows in a painting that create depth.
Exactly. Or the dissonant chords in a piece of music that make the final resolution so beautiful. He argues that you can't just remove the bad parts without collapsing the whole complex web of simple laws that makes the good parts possible. The whole thing is a package deal.
It's a fascinating, if somewhat terrifying, optimism. It hurts, but trust me, the math is optimal.
That's Leibniz in a nutshell.
So we've journeyed through these three massive, intricate systems. Let's try to pull them together for a moment, because when you line them up, you really see the core struggle of the early modern mind.
It's the struggle to reconcile science and soul, the new mechanical world with the old world of meaning and consciousness.
Right. So let's do a quick compare and contrast. Let's start with substance, the basic stuff of reality, for Descartes.
Three types, really. God, the ultimate substance, and then two created substances, mind and matter, a dualism.
It matches our intuition. We feel like ghosts in machines. But as we said, logically it falls apart at the interaction point.
It does.
Then Spinoza comes in and says,
Stop splitting it. It's all one substance. God nature, a strict monism.
logically watertight, but it kind of swallows up our individuality. We become just ripples in God. And then Leibniz reacts by shattering it back into individuals.
A radical pluralism,
Yeah.
not one, not two, but infinite substances, the monads. We are all kings of our own little castles.
But the cost is total isolation. We're windowless.
Completely windowless.
Then what about matter? This is the one that really gets me. For Descartes, matter is real, it's solid, it's the one thing we can be sure of besides our own mind once God is in the picture.
It is res extensa, extended substance. It's the bedrock of his physics.
To Spinoza.
It's just one attribute of God. Real, but not a separate substance. It's the body of God.
But for Leibniz, think about it. If
Yeah.
the whole world is made of non-physical monads, then matter is an illusion.
It is an illusion, or more precisely, a well-founded phenomenon. He says matter is like a rainbow.
But the rainbow.
A rainbow looks like a solid, continuous arch of color, right? But it's really just the collective effect of light refracting through millions of individual, separate water droplets.
So a rock isn't a solid thing.
A rock looks and acts solid to us, but it's really our confused perception of a massive colony of sleeping monads. Fundamentally, reality is not material.
That is. Weirdly modern. It sounds almost like quantum field theory, where particles are just excitations in a field.
It is. Leibniz is often seen as the grandfather of computer science, with his binary code and even quantum mechanics. He saw the universe as fundamentally information and energy, not hard, solid rocks.
And driving all of this, Descartes' doubt, Spinoza's unity, Leibniz's infinite mirrors, is that one rule we started with?
The principle of sufficient reason.
The refusal to accept just because. The absolute unshakable demand that the universe must make sense, that it must be rationally explicable to the human mind.
And that led these three brilliant thinkers to three completely different yet internally consistent universes.
And I guess the question is, does it have to make sense? Did they succeed?
That is the big question, isn't it? These men build magnificent cathedrals of logic. They proved God, they solved the soul, they explained the entire universe. But they did it, for the most part, by shutting their eyes and just thinking.
They emptied the apple barrel and then tried to rebuild it from just one perfect apple.
They did. And you have to ask yourself, when you close your eyes and build the world entirely in your head, are you discovering the fundamental truth of reality? Or are you just getting trapped in your own reflection?
Which brings us back to Leibniz's haunting image, the windowless monad.
It really is a haunting image. We started this journey with Descartes, terrified of being alone in his mind, needing God to prove he wasn't dreaming. We end with Leibniz saying, well, technically you are alone. You are just experiencing a private, internal simulation of the universe that God has programmed to sync up with everyone else's.
So when I look at you and you look at me, are we actually connecting? Or are we just two clocks ticking perfectly in the dark, each programmed to think we're having a conversation?
If Leibniz is right, we'll never truly know for sure. We just have to trust the clockmaker.
On that rather existential bombshell, I think we'll wrap up. This has been a heavy one, but hopefully your monad is feeling a little more enlightened.
Or at least clearly and distinctly confused.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you in the next possible world.